This Equipment World video is brought to you by Chevron Delo 600 ADF Ultra Low Ash Diesel Engine Oil. It's time to kick some ash. Hi everybody, welcome back to Equipment World. You're watching The Dirt. I'm your host Brian, and today we're here to talk about the new Case E-Series excavators. I was recently out in Tomahawk, Wisconsin, and had the opportunity to give these kind of a test run as an operator to kind of get a feel for what I thought of the new E-Series. And I will say, similar to how I did with the Minotaur, this will be a review from an operator's perspective. If you haven't picked up yet, I'm not really of a spec sheet guy. I really like to get into the seat and kind of give you the experience as I perceive it as an operator. And that's exactly what I want to do with the new E-Series. Now, overall, from an operating standpoint and power standpoint, the E-Series is very much a continuation upon the D-Series. You're not going to notice just a tremendous difference in the overall operating experience of the machine. Case, in my opinion, has always been some of the smoothest machines in the industry. They've always been very well balanced, and they've been just powerful. They've always felt like they've got a lot of power behind them without being really light in the back end. And that is just all going to carry over to this E-Series. There's not going to be anything just blindingly different from the actual operating of the machine. So one of the first points that changed on the machine that you're not materially going to notice when you walk up to it is the fact that they have been repowered. It is no longer an outside party providing the engine for these machines. They are now powered by the FPT engine line. Now, as an operator, that doesn't immediately jump out of the gate. This machine has a phenomenal amount of power over the old D-Series, but what I will say absolutely stands out to you, especially as an old school operator, is you can actually hear the turbo on these machines. And I'm going to be honest, I did not realize just how much I missed the sound of that turbo until I fired up that CX220 I was running and heard a whistle for the first time in probably a decade. It was incredible. I love it. And the more you make the machine work, just like the old school machines, the louder that turbo screams. I love it. I missed it. It's a fantastic addition to these machines. Now, when you move into the cab, this is where you start to see some of the major changes that Case has made to the E-Series line. One of the first things that sticks out when you get into the cab is the giant screen. You have a very nice big screen there in the cab with a series of soft keys right underneath. The screen is absolutely beautifully lit so that you don't have any issues seeing any of the information even on a bright sunny day. It also has the auto dimming feature so that as soon as you turn the lights on the machine, that screen's going to dim down so that it's not interfering with your peripheral vision. Now, the soft keys at the bottom are awesome, and I found myself using these quite a bit. You can program those to any number of functions. You go in through the menu system, you pick what soft key you want to represent which function, and now you have a lot of access to a lot of menu items that you don't have to dig for anymore. It's just right there on your soft key at your fingertips, with one of the soft keys being dedicated to going back into the menu system. Another feature Case has added, you now have the ability to customize all of your buttons on your actual controls. So if I wanted my auxiliary hydraulics to be over on my left-hand trigger, I could do that, or I could shuffle them over to my right-hand thumb button. It's all up to how you want to customize the cockpit. Absolutely love this feature about the machine. Now, diving back over to your screen, just below your soft keys, you have your new HVAC controls. For those of you familiar with the old D-Series, we used to have to reach under our armrest anytime we wanted to change the fan settings or the temperature settings. And because the buttons weren't very tactile, you had to be very conscious of what you were doing. It wasn't something you could just kind of do on the fly while not paying attention. You always had to flip that armrest up and look at the buttons you were pushing. That is no longer the case. They are right out in front of you, just under your soft keys, right below the screen. Very easy to use buttons. It is very tactile, so you know exactly what you're pushing. I really do love this, a new addition to the E-Series over the D-Series. Now, another great feature that is hidden in your menus, but not really hidden because you can use your soft keys to get to it quick, is the ability to save attachment settings. This has been available for a while on competitor machines and has now been implemented in the Case excavator line. You can go in, dial in custom attachment settings and actually save those attachments. So for instance, if you're a company that ran two different breakers that needed two different flow rates, you could set one up as hammer A, one as hammer B, and as long as you know within your company which hammer is which, you don't have to go in and actually dial in the settings anymore. It's saved. It's a one-touch, very quick cycle through your attachments, and now you're to the correct attachment without having to dive into the menus. Really nice feature. Glad to see it implemented on these new Case E-Series machines. Now, another awesome item found in the menus that is brand new to the E-Series is what Case is calling, and I want to get this right, the Case Hydraulic Flow Balance System. But before we get into that, I want to take a second to tell you about the sponsor of this video, Chevron Lubricants. Protecting your diesel engine and its exhaust aftertreatment system has traditionally been seen as an either-or proposition when it comes to choosing the engine oil that's going to protect your system. And that's exactly why Chevron spent more than a decade of R&D work developing a no-compromise formulation. Now, I don't have to tell you why a clogged DPF is bad news, but here's the real kick in the pants. 90% of that ash clogging up your DPF and then upping your fuel and maintenance costs, it comes from your engine oil. You might be thinking, why don't they make an engine oil with less ash in it then? You'll be happy to learn that Chevron agrees with you. They've developed a new ultra-low ash diesel engine oil that is specifically designed to combat DPF ash clogging. Delo 600 ADF with OmniMax technology cuts sulfate ash by 60%, radically reducing the rate of DPF clogging and extending the DPF service life by 2.5 times. Before, you had to choose between protecting your engine or your aftertreatment system. Now you don't. Delo 600 ADF with OmniMax technology. It's time to kick some ash. The Case Hydraulic Flow Balance System. Essentially what this is in my mind is hydraulic priority. You can actually go into the menus and you can decide whether you want your boom or your stick to have priority. And then separate from that, you can determine whether you want your stick or your swing motors to have hydraulic priority. So you have two separate settings where you are able to customize hydraulic priority for the machine. Now, what I found is this wasn't something that just absolutely made a night and day difference in the machine. When I was doing ordinary digging there at Tomahawk, it was a very subtle change to where it was almost not noticeable while I was just straight digging. Now, where it did really kick in and I did start to see where this would become really handy is when I simulated loading a truck. I was able to prioritize my boom up over my stick, and then I was able to prioritize my stick over my swing motors. What that essentially did is made it to where I would set my hands to where I was booming up, sticking out, and swinging over to my truck. And I would set my hands all the way with the joysticks in their extreme most positions, and the timing was almost perfect to where as I was getting to where I would swing over my truck, the bucket was almost perfectly positioned. This is a feature that I think a lot of operators, first of all, who don't spend any time in the menus, are never going to actually take advantage of because they don't realize it exists. Of those operators who do spend the time in the menus, I think there's a good portion of them that won't really utilize this because it's not a noticeable difference and they won't spend any time experimenting with it. What I can see is after you've spent a few weeks in this machine, you've gotten to where you really intimately know the machine. I can absolutely see this being a very big game changer for just making your controller movements simpler. As an operator, you're constantly adjusting your hands to play with timing so that everything times out by the time you swing over your truck or over your pile. I could see where in different digging conditions you would absolutely start to tweak these to where you really kind of just set your hands and forget it, and the machine will automatically time out to where you are dumping exactly where you want to based on how you have the hydraulic settings set. Again, this is one of those features that you're really going to have to get intimate to the machine to really get how handy it is, but at the same time, it is a very handy feature, and I'm really glad to see Case implementing this on the E-Series machines. I know for one, I will be absolutely taking advantage of this feature. Another feature Case has added is with the throttle knob. So we've traditionally had a throttle knob where we have basically gone 1 to 10 or however you want to list it out. It has just been a very smooth knob all the way, and then if you push the button and rotate further over for you Case users, you get into SP mode. That has changed a bit. You now have a knob that says Eco right in the middle, and you start off in Eco mode. Within Eco mode, you have 10 power detents, if you will. You have 10 settings on your RPM within Eco. If you push the Eco button down, you flip over into H mode or heavy mode. And within heavy mode, you have an additional 10 different steps on your RPM. And then if you continue to crank it over, that is where you reach SP. Now, as an operator, I don't foresee myself really taking advantage of this just because most operators generally crank it all the way to the right and we are going to run in SP mode all the time. But I can really see this being handy for delicate situations where you might be craning something over a hole, or for lowboy operators loading the equipment onto the trailer. It is going to be nice having those additional settings where you can really fine tune your RPM and how much power you want out of the machine. Now, another upgrade that isn't necessarily apparent right off the bat is the upgraded modem. With the upgraded modem, Case is able to do substantially more remote diagnostics before showing up on site with a tech, which means ultimately as a contractor, you're going to save money on avoidable service calls or additional service calls where they need to figure out what parts the tech needs. This really brings them up another level in the ability of having remote diagnostics available to these machines, which is going to be a game changer for a lot of your smaller contractors who are paying for multiple service calls on a machine because no one knows what's going on with it. Staying in line with most of its competitors, Case is offering 2D and 3D grade control options on this machine, and that's a really nice feature, especially in the market where we're struggling to find qualified operators to come over and run some of these machines. Having the ability to put factory grade control on these machines has been a real game changer for a lot of contractors, and Case is coming right alongside their competitors and offering the ability to put machine control on the machine straight from the factory. Now we get into one of the biggest shortcomings I see of this machine, and I will emphasize Case is not alone here, and it is the lack of overdig protection. Just because, like I stated, we're in an economic environment where we are struggling to find competent workers. And so if I can take an excavator operator and put them in this machine, and there may be a C or B level operator, and I can turn them into an A level operator with overdig protection, that is ultimately going to save me a phenomenal amount of money as a contractor. So you get the indicate device, but it's not actually going to stop you from overdigging on your grade. Now, that's not any detriment to the Case machine or any of their competitors. It's just, I see where the market's going, and I think more manufacturers really need to start pushing into this technology and implementing it on their machines. Overall, the E-Series is a great excavator. I will say this, I have always been a fan of Case excavators. They've always just been super smooth, had a lot of power. They've been well-rounded, nice, well-balanced machines. And if you liked the D-Series excavators, it is everything the D-Series was and more, with the new comfort upgrades within the cab, with some of the additional features that Case has added. These are really, really quality machines. Case continues to put out a really nice excavator line. So as always, I hope this has been helpful. I hope it's giving you as a contractor some additional information before you make your next excavator purchase. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode of The Dirt.